Go ahead, Dan.
All right, thank you, Ishmael. Hello, everyone. It is a total pleasure to be at this great prediction market conference, but also any prediction market conference. Like John and like some other folks here, I've been interested in prediction markets for about 15 years now. It was a different world back in 2010, 2011, 2012. And it's just delightful to see so much energy and so many people here in this industry. Okay, I'm going to pray to the demo gods and give you guys a live demo. The first live in-person demo of FutureSearch. And it's a bit slow, as you'll see. So I'm going to start it now, and then I will explain what this is all about and maybe answer the question about what is the relationship between forecasting and prediction markets. Okay, so I'm going to start here saying, find me some prediction market questions. And we'll see what it comes up with. I did prepare a set of questions that I thought were interesting this morning. One thing about this event compared to, for anybody who was at the Manifest events in the Bay Area, kind of the forecasting conference / festival over the last couple of years, those guys are always on their phones betting during the events. I haven't seen a lot of people here on their phones making live bets. Maybe that's because there's not a lot on Polymarket or Kalshi about this event. There's nothing you've learned in one of these talks that immediately makes you want to get out your phone and actually bet. You might during this one. If I see you looking at your phone, I will think you're not being rude. You're just betting because I just gave you some useful information. Okay, so FutureSearch comes preloaded with a bunch of topical forecasting questions on Polymarket and Kalshi, but I'm going to use the one I prepared this morning because I thought they were more interesting. Show me these. Okay, so you can see some of the URLs here. You can click through these. US-Iran, Strait of Hormuz, Iran, Anthropic, Google, DeepSeek, Gemini, Fed, Jerome Powell, recession. You get the general idea. I'm going to say, please forecast all of these. If any of my engineers are watching this right now, make sure this is working. Okay. So FutureSearch is a platform that gives you a team of researchers. One of the things you can do with them is forecast a bunch of Polymarket questions. You can see there's a set of researchers that you get, and they are off now doing all of the forecasting. So one of the main things about using a team to do research for you is the team has to organize. If you want to make money on Polymarket, there are a lot of questions there. And if you yourself just start Googling or asking Claude, what are these probabilities, what's going on with Iran, it's going to take you a while. So this team of researchers will divide up all of these questions that are related, and it will go and have them all kind of coordinate and figure out different facets about how to predict all of them. So you can see here, some of them are just getting started, just looking into it. Some of them are doing some basic research. These are all a bunch of Iran questions. This is one Iran question and a bunch of AI questions, more AI questions, Fed questions, recession questions. They've kind of clustered them in ways where the researchers can share their research and off they go trying to figure this out. Okay, this is going to run for maybe about 10 minutes. So now I'm going to set this aside. Pray to my team of researchers that they do a good job and explain what this is all about. So first, I'm Dan Schwarz. I'm the CEO and co-founder of FutureSearch. This is on our website, FutureSearch.ai. Again, if I see anybody on your phones, I know it's because you're looking at the website. We founded FutureSearch in August of 2023. For us, this is pretty late into the prediction market forecasting game. For many people in this audience, this might feel like the bygone era before prediction markets were all over CNN. One of the first things that we did as a company was deploy some AI forecasters on a prediction market. We were the first to do so as far as I know. You can see the little announcement here. This is started up in January of 2024. Again, when I look at this now, it feels like this is a long, long time ago. Actually, show of hands, who here knows about manifold markets? Oh, most of you. Okay, that's great. Manifold markets was, for a time, the largest prediction market, full stop. Again, not counting sports betting markets as prediction markets, although if you kind of squint, you could say that maybe DraftKings was the biggest prediction market. Manifold was very big, and they let you create your own questions, and they had an API, and you could run bots, but it was play money. There was no money changing hands, so we didn't have to get like a legal license to do this. We could just make bets, because what we were after was accuracy. Can we beat humans with AIs on a prediction market? We weren't so interested in making money, but just going heads up against humans. The AIs we had here were using GPT-4 Turbo and Claude 2. This is a long time ago. If anybody's typed a polymarket question into ChatGPT or Claude lately, you know it's gotten very good. It was a bit tough to get good forecasts out, but we did actually beat the median forecaster. And for those of you with lots of experience on prediction markets, you probably know, most forecasters are very bad. A small number are very good. The very good bettors beat us, but we beat the average. And that was kind of the beginning of AIs running amok on prediction markets. Okay, this is FutureSearch. So get out your phones if you want. For this event, since this is the first live event with this product, we're giving away $100 on the platform to anybody who signs up by tomorrow. So don't leave the conference without doing this. I have what I'm told is the largest QR code ever. So if you point your phones at this giant QR code, it will take you to the page I was just showing. And if you sign in, just with a Google sign-in, no credit card required, it will seed your account with $100. And that $100 can be used to direct your team of researchers to go after whatever you want. I assume at this crowd, you're going to be doing what I was doing in the other tab, which is trying to beat Polymarket, but you could use it to research anything that you want. So let's check back in. Yeah, so this has been going for 4 or 5 minutes now. You can see what some of these agents are up to and see if any of them have figured out anything interesting. One of the nice things about having an AI running a team for you is that you can look at what the entire team is doing and see what is going on. So you can see here, it's systematically working through all of these agents, crawling the web, looking at the odds, building their models, coming up with whatever evidence they can to try to figure out the best thing, sharing the results, and then the orchestrator is looking at all of them and trying to figure out what's going on. Ultimately, if you set aside AI and you just said, how do you make the best trades on Polymarket, I'd assume it would be some hedge fund. We've talked about at this conference already, institutional investors moving in. You wouldn't expect it would just be one guy in their basement. I think John mentioned the super forecasters, the retired mom in Kansas, or was it Nebraska? I can't remember, who has better odds than all the political pundits. I think we all know about that. But the best work on hard questions is done by a team, and the team should be organized by someone who can look at what that team is doing and have them share all of their research together. Fundamentally, this is just the best way to get the best answer on something, and I think the only question now is, do you want a team of humans doing this research, or are the AIs good enough that a team of AIs can do this research? So this is going to go for a bit longer. I want to very quickly show you some of the evidence that these forecasters are actually good. So this year we have started trading on Polymarket and Kalshi, but very recently, it might be up a little bit, hard to say, no statistical significance. But if you go to the research page on our website, you'll see that we have been studying this for some time now. Again, going back to the original, if I just ask ChatGPT to tell me what's going on with this question, how well will it go? We started looking into this. How do we actually evaluate this? Like, how do we say empirically, is it getting the right information on these questions? In 2024, we kind of created these evals by hand. 2025, we created a deep research bench. Actually, that's another question for you guys. Who here, in order to try to make money on a prediction market, has used deep research on one of the AI platforms? 1, 2, 3, 4. Did you guys know that there's a thing called deep research on ChatGPT and Gemini and Claude that will just read like 700 articles and tell you absolutely every single thing it can find on a topic? Yeah, it's actually pretty useful for making winning bets on a prediction market. At FutureSearch, what we were trying to figure out is, are these things accurate? It can definitely do a good volume of research, but can actually get the correct answer. So we put out deep research bench. You can see the evals on our site about which models do better under which agent arrangements. And then in June of last year, we set up pass casting. So I'm going to skip the gory details unless somebody really wants to grill me on it on the Q&A afterwards. But if you want to know if a forecaster is good, the most obvious thing to do is go put it on Polymarket and wait some number of months, and then you'll see some number come out the other side. I previously served as the CTO of Metaculus briefly. We were thinking about accuracy purely as accuracy, not as profit, but just the closest to the best probabilities. Just try to be accurate and worry about profit later. But even so, if you ask a forecasting question and you try to forecast it as a human or as an AI, and then you wait and find out what happens, it's not reproducible. You can never ask that question again and see, would I do better or would an AI do better? So what we at FutureSearch have set up is what we call pass casting. So the trick here is that AIs have training window cutoffs. And again, for those of you who have tried to make money on Polymarket by just typing stuff into Claude, you probably know this. Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, they only know stuff up to some number of months ago, and they have to go research and figure out the rest of it. We can leverage that and ask questions that happen after that training window cutoff, so the model has no idea, and we can freeze the internet. So again, gory details here, but for every question in this set, we take 10,000 relevant pages from the web and store them offline in a database. And then as we work on our forecasting, we give the forecaster a question beyond its knowledge, and we say you can only use these 10,000 pages. Government reports, like business analysts, news, any data sets you can find. You can only search this. You can't use the live internet, because if you just use the live internet, you just look up the resolution and you know exactly what happened and why. And so that's how we build a better AI forecaster, is we actually train it in an offline hermetic environment. This year, we published some more results about creating good questions and how to resolve them. And just out a couple of days ago in preprint, we put out this one. Again, I really have to restrain myself from going too much into this. Some of you guys here are like, I want to know, are these forecasters good? Can I trust them? And you don't care about anything except what's in this paper. And I'm sure a lot of you could not care less about Breyer scores and calibration and refinement and stuff like that. So excuse me for the folks who really do care about the accuracy scores. We have been studying the properties about the best AI forecasters, including the ones that FutureSearch builds. One interesting finding, by the way, is to be good on Polymarket, you need to kind of predict what people are going to do. You need to predict what institutions are going to do. That's very hard to do if you just ask an AI to do that. How good is its judgment? How good is it in modeling what someone's incentives are? And are they going to do what they said that they were going to do? And we measure that directly in this environment. And we find one of the main things that expert human super forecasters are still better than the AI agents are is exactly this: modeling people's incentives and saying, they've never done this, they said they were never going to do this, why might they do it now? And actually try to figure that out. Anyway, blah, 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 a bunch of numbers. And this is the table. These are close facsimiles of what would happen if you just typed a Polymarket question straight into ChatGPT or Claude. Again, for those of you who have been in the forecasting business for a while, if you know that these questions are very hard, you know these scores are very good. Since we started FutureSearch 2.5 years ago, we went from AIs that couldn't forecast their way out of a paper bag to things that are probably better heads up against all of you guys unless you put a serious amount of research into the question that you're forecasting. This improvement here over the next best agent is roughly speaking something like being 10% closer on every question in a 1,300 question forecasting set. These Breyer scores are very significant. Okay, enough rambling. Hopefully these are done. And, well, it says they're done, but I don't see the results. There we go. Okay, so here's a bunch of questions, here's a bunch of probabilities, here's a bunch of rationales. Again, I want to stress, this system is not built to forecast on Polymarket. It doesn't know anything about Polymarket. This is a purely general purpose forecaster that is just looking at the questions that happen to be on Polymarket. I'll take questions at the end, unless it's very incisive. So what I'm going to say here is, please use the Polymarket API to fetch the order books for these questions. Then take the volume between the market price and these forecasts and compute the expected value return if I were to trade that whole volume. Express output as annualized return. So one of the nice things about, for those of you in the ecosystem of prediction markets, is Polymarket and Callsheet and Manifold and Metaculus all have pretty decent APIs. So again, there's nothing built into FutureSearch to do this. We just have a really good coding agent that is just the main driver of our platform. And so you can just ask questions. You can ask it to look up Yahoo Finance stuff. You can ask for it to look up Wikipedia data, whatever. It's a coding agent. For those of you who've used Claude Code, it's very similar. It can basically do anything. It's magic. It's 2026. And one of the magical things it can do is just take a bunch of forecasts and immediately start constructing portfolios for you on the fly. This is going to take a little bit. So while I wait, I'll show you. So I ran this one this morning, and it was very similar to the demo I'm going through now. And this is one of the questions it forecasts. DeepSeek V4 release by April 30. Anybody use DeepSeek here? DeepSeek was very hot a few months ago. Anyone actually use DeepSeek as an AI model that you talk to? Yeah, the Delphi guys back there? Wait, is that still you guys? Or if you moved around, you use it? I don't know what's going on with DeepSeek. I thought it was really a flash in the pan. Okay, so April 30, that's like in 7 days. And it says 72%. And I don't know if I want to read all of this. Yeah, you can kind of get the structure. Like, what does an elite forecasting AI look like? It's going to cite its sources. It's going to write a really long rationale. And it's really going to focus on why it might be wrong. This is the main thing that you can get out of AIs now that was very hard when FutureSearch started 2.5 years ago, to just ask an AI what might be wrong about this. But now it's what I would call epistemics. Its knowledge of its own shortcomings has gotten very good. So you can see here, reasons for yes, reasons for no, and the key uncertainties. And the beauty of this is that, again, this is not hooked up to trade on Polymarket. If you want to trade, again, just pull out your phones and make trades on this right now. This, for me, is just the starting point. Okay, so this question, the market was saying like 85%. This thing is saying 72%. That's potentially a huge return if that's true, but is it 72%? I picked this one because the forecast the system picked was much different from the forecast that the rest of the market had. That could just be selecting for errors in the system. So how do you know this is a good forecast? Well, how do you ever know something is a good forecast? You just got to go study it. So the next thing you do as a human is you read this and you think about it and you look at all of its arguments and all of its rationales and you read its citations. I think if you wanted to, and again, FutureSearch does this, you could just blindly just make bets based on this thing. But forecasting for me is about accuracy. Prediction markets are about trying to say something intelligent about the future. It's not just like throwing a bunch of bets at something and hoping the wisdom of the crowds produces something useful. I want to know, why would DeepSeek release something by April 30? What is with these rumors? Like, what is even going on with DeepSeek? Like, to me, the power of having a team of researchers at my disposal is to actually learn useful things about the world. And if you have that edge in knowledge, then you can turn it into a profit, but that's not primarily what this is about. Okay, and I'm about at time, but it hasn't finished doing all of these calculations, but fortunately, it probably will before I step down. But I'll stop there. And if I have the graces of a buffer period before the next talk, then we could take a couple of questions. Yeah, there was one somewhere in the middle here. And with luck, the expected value calculations will just appear on the screen at some point. Questions? And yeah, microphones, thank you.
Thank you. How do you exclude existing market prices from your forecasting benchmarks?
We don't. We look at them. And when we first started this, we actually built some pipelines where we blacklisted certain URLs like Polymarket, Callsheet, Metaculus, and said, work it out for yourself. But over time, we found it was just more useful to just look at them because we consistently find edges. If your thing is much worse than the market, there's some data, great. If your thing is much worse than the market, then a good strategy for that agent is to just parrot whatever the market was saying. If your agent is really smart, then it's just one input among many. Just as a human trader, you could say, I'm going to try to make money on this Polymarket question, and I'm not going to look at it. I'm just going to, this is, by the way, expert forecasters that I work with and that work at FutureSearch do this sometimes. Like, don't tell me what anybody else has said. I don't want to hear what the market is saying. Just blind me to that. I will work it out for myself, and then I will look and see what other people are saying so I can really see if I figured it out. We used to do that. We don't do that. So if you look into the rationales, you will see explicit citations about what bettors are saying on these questions. And it does generally anchor our forecast closer to them, but not in a way that disrupts the ability to find profit. Others?
When you say you have multiple researchers as agents, do you mean that you have identical agents that are all drawing upon the same library? And I guess, like, what is it, doing RAG individually? Or are the agents in some way unique from one another?
A great question. It depends. So this forecast that I ran here live, I had 40 agents at my disposal on this tier of the product, and it used most of them, and it divided up the questions into groups of 4. It set 6 agents across those 4, and those 6 all took a different strategy. That's actually a good cost savings. We have, if you just ask it, yeah, for example, like take the one with the highest ROI and do a max effort forecast. This one will use a different approach. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's only one question. This will cost something like $2. And this one, broadly speaking, the agents that are looking at this are calibrated differently, but are basically thinking about it the same way. They're just being asked the question and studying it, and then we have a bunch of some of the things are described in the paper in order to get the best possible forecast out of it. I mean, one of the big lessons in AI forecasting is that when we started this, kind of imbuing human forecasting principles, like what the super forecasters do, into agent scaffolds, into model selection, into a bunch of prompts, into search techniques, page reading techniques, modeling techniques. It was very helpful because the edge the humans had over the AIs was so high. Now, as we find in the research that we do and that we publish, general purpose agents are getting scary intelligent to the point where they outperform an agent that is being instructed to approach it in the way that an expert human would. And pretty soon, I don't think that any human techniques will be very useful, just basically different ways of orchestrating the AI and cost. Cost is a huge thing here. These agents are very expensive using these frontier models and using lots of agents, using frontier models for deep research, reading, like literally deep research, these things that read hundreds of web pages, write all these rationales, debate amongst each other. So the real question is more, how do you get the cost down? Because the cost can almost approach what the cost is for a human to sit down and work it out.
I just wanted to ask a follow-up question. How did you get it to recognize or simulate it recognizing its own capacity for failure? Are you drawing upon, is it just that it's looking at people writing about mistakes that AIs make, and then it just is referring to literature that already exists, and because that literature is growing, it's able to then consult that literature and then check its own work? Or are you doing something unique that allows it to be able to actually think about, or not like humanizing it, but make it contemplate things that it may be missing?
Trade secret.
Okay.
So good question. I guess the point I meant to make earlier is that it is now possible to elicit good epistemics and good judgment, good understanding of its own hindsight bias, understanding of black swans or reasons why something might go very askew. We've demonstrated that you can elicit these things and you can get better accuracy out of them, but how we do it is why you guys would pay us.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, thank you all very much. Unless there's more questions, I will leave this giant QR code on the screen. $100 to use your team of researchers to do whatever you want. Only works for this conference, expires tomorrow. Thank you all very much.